Why? Halloween? No. Let me be clear.
I know what you're drinking.
Yeah, you don't want it on the first.
Because then you have to study at home.
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart.
Don't worry. You have 2 days to review. So, you guys will have your chapter 1 test on the 31st. It's a Thursday. And we will review out of the book the Wednesday and Tuesday before. So today, Monday is the last lecture.
Yes,
All right. Really, Halloween had little to do with it. Oh, we're done. So let's have a test.
Yeah. I love that all my notes are red.
Oh. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, what did you get when you solved for x?
-3 over 2. What was that?
Good. -3 over 2 is the solution. And what is the excluded value? 5. Very good. This is really important. Hey, how did you get that? Did you go through a big cross multiply process or? So if I make 0 into a fraction, then I have a fraction equal to a fraction. So I could cross multiply, right? So 1 times 2x plus 3 is 2x plus 3. And x minus 5 times 0 is 0. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, hold that thought. I don't want you to do it. Okay. So then you would subtract the 3 and divide by the 2. So we get -3/2. Well, that's a whole lot of work. Can't you just look here and be like, oh, if I move the 3 and divide by 2, I get -3/2? And then the excluded value comes from the denominator, right? So this was really easy to do, right? Okay. If you can do that, is 0 work? Super. All right. Do you love when I tell you that? Yeah. 0 work. Okay. You can do work if you want to, but if you can look at that and give me this, that's good. Can I show you what this looks like? Can you all get out your calculators, please?
Miss, yeah, may have gotten one from the finance office and it may or may not work.
May or may not work. Yeah. Do you have batteries?
She said she put in batteries. They
Don't
take the
trust her
batteries.
battery. She lied to you.
Yeah,
There's that. She definitely lied to you.
They take the batteries. It falls off.
They have a. Yeah.
She said that's the last one.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, I would take it back to treatment. It might be the coin batteries anymore. That's fine. The Casio is a far superior calculator in 40 bucks.
I don't know. Well, I have a T8040. My brother uses it.
All right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks, dear. I want to put this equation into the calculator, and you're going to go put it in Y1, but you must do it very specifically, okay? And it's absolutely essential that you know how to put this in your calculator. The numerator needs to be in parentheses, and also the denominator so that your calculator doesn't get confused, all right? So you need to put parentheses around the numerator and around the denominator. So, and I'm putting, one side in Y1 and the other side in Y2. So I have the 0 in there. I'm going to put in the 2x plus 3 divided by x minus 5. Use parentheses. It's really just a good idea.
Their window decent, you know what? It's just constant.
Zoom standard. Divide. Okay, is anyone not here with me? 0, yeah. Alright, and then do like a Zoom standard. If you have Casio, you're going to go to View in Windows Standard. That's the, your access right here.
What she said was same. They don't know.
Noel, when your calculator doesn't work, fuck me.
Alright. So I'm going to do Zoom Standard and all right. This is kind of interesting. This is a rational fractional function, and rational fractional functions always have these sort of like L-shaped thing. They just all kind of look like this. And so there's a couple things happening. First of all, God bless you.
Thank you.
We found that x equals -3/2. So can you do a trace? Press trace and then type in -3/2 and hit enter. Trace right here and then -3/2 and hit enter. And you can see what is the value of the function.
Wait, what was the last one? Trace.
Trace. And on the Casio, yes. And then type in -3/2. Find yours. So there's the standard window. We're going to exit and then
When your calculator shit.
and so you have a trace there.
When your calculator is
Shift
TI.
trace and then type in -3/2. Okay.
When you're so poor, you have an abacus. So fucking I don't remember what. So my grandfather has this ruler.
Type in -3/2. All right.
When you don't wash your face.
Okay. So you'll notice when I type in -3/2, the value of the function is 0. The y value is 0. When I move to the left, so I'm arrowing to the left, what do you notice about the y values?
So they go up.
They're going up. They're going positive. They're positive. We're in positive land here for values to the left of -3/2. When I move to the right of -3/2, what happens to the y values?
I don't know my life.
They're negative. We're in negative land. We're at where y values are less than 0. Okay. You'll notice what's happening here. We're going down, and then over here to the right, it picks back up, but way up high. Right here, I can trace and type in 5. Trace and type in 5. What do you expect to see here?
Your calculator
No
just goes into
solution.
flames.
Your calculator bursts into flames.
Oh, fuck.
All right.
Why
Nothing.
you
Y equals nothing. It's blank. It's yeah. So your Casio might say error. Okay. Undefined. The TI is blank because it's undefined, as in not defined. There's nothing there. Okay. But you'll notice to the right, if I arrow to the right, all of a sudden my y value turns positive. I'm way up here at positive 42. And all of these values will be positive to the right of there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing the same thing we did yesterday. We're looking for where is our graph positive and negative. Okay? Same thing as yesterday. Figuring out where our function is positive and negative. So example 1. Solve and express the inequality using interval notation. Solve and express the inequality using interval notation. I'm going to show you the algebra intense way one time, but then we're just going to do it all with the calculator, okay?
Well, Miss.
So if you don't have a calculator, you can use desmos.com as well.
How does it feel, Noelle, to be in my situation?
You might need a coin battery. It's a little,
No, want to just
round one
transfer
underneath.
batteries every problem.
it's underneath. So when you take out all the batteries, you have to unscrew a little tiny screw, and there's one of the little flat coin batteries that might need to watch. All right, here we go.
I don't wear my watch anymore, but
You'll notice it's set equal to 0. That's very, very important that it's set equal to 0. So because we did the number 1, what's the solution for x?
-7.
X equals -7. What value makes it undefined?
8.
All right, so x cannot equal 8. Those are the two critical values, the zeros and where it's undefined, okay? Those are the two things when we have a rational function that we need to find. When we have zeros and undefined things, our function can change from negative to positive. Those are the only places, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very simple sign chart. Instead of drawing a fancy graph, I'm going to just place these values, these critical points, -7 and 8. I'm allowed to equal -7. What does my function equal at -7? 0. That's why it's called a 0, okay? Because it equals 0. Its value is 0. What happens at -8? It doesn't exist. It is not included. So I'm going to use an open circle at -8 because it's not an answer. It is where my function can change from negative to positive. Now, I can do this all on the calculator. I'm going to show you, this is called a sign chart. We're going to test some values and see if we get positive results or negative results. So I'm going to pick a point. Give me a number to the left of -7.
-24.
I'm going to use -10. Why am I going to use -10?
It's a nice
It's a nice number, okay? I'm going to try to get as nice as I can.
And then just do 10.
So I'm going to plug in my -10 back into my function. -10 plus 7 is
3.
-3 over -10 minus 8 is. Do I get a positive result or negative result?
Positive.
Oh, so everything to the left of -7 would give us a positive graphical result. We're going to get positive y values. I'll show you on your calculator in just a minute so you can see how it connects. Give me a number between -7 and 8.
5.
-1.
0. Oh, I'm so glad you chose 0. All right, so when you plug in 0, 0 plus 7 gives you
-7.
7.
I jumped ahead.
And 0 minus 8 gives you -8. Is that a positive or negative result?
Negative.
Negative result. So our graph is going to be below the axis. It's got negative y values between -7 and 8. Now give me a number to the right of 8.
It's just it's positive.
10 or 9, doesn't matter.
That'll just be.
All right. So this would be, if we plug in a 10, 17 over 2. Is that a positive or negative result?
Positive.
Positive. Great. We want to know, where is the function greater than 0? What does that mean to be greater than 0?
Positive.
Positive. So what are our intervals then?
Negative.
Very good.
Negative.
Negative infinity all the way to
-7.
negative 7. Do I use a bracket or parenthesis at negative 7? Parenthesis. What?
Because it's not equal to. It's
Just
just
because it's Rational Inequality, it's not your
Oh, it is.
Well, that's just for this part. It is equal to 0 at some point.
Okay, that's what you.
Where we just want to be greater than 0, not equal to 0. So we don't want to include that -7. So that's negative infinity to -7. Where else are we positive?
above 8.
Above 8. 8 to infinity. Very good. 8 to infinity. This is your solution interval. So let's see how that looks compared to the graph, shall we? Will you plug this into your calculator?
Sure,
What do you need to remember if you're plugging this in your calculator?
Parentheses.
Parentheses. I'm going to change my window. I'm going to change my window. I think change your viewing window from the X minimum to -20 and +20. So change your viewing window. On the Casio, it's called V window, viewing window. All right, and then once you change that X min and X max.
Oh, that looks so much crisper than 49.
Okay, kind of interesting. So I'm going to use trace and go to -7, and I'm right here on the axis. And you can see if I move left of -7, my y values are very small, but they are positive. So my graph is positive above the axis forever. Okay. When I move to the right, now my y values turned negative, just like we predicted by plugging in values. Okay. If I trace and hit 8, we know it's undefined. We already knew that. And if I move to the right, so I'm just hitting my right arrow key, you can see my y values turn out to be positive, just like we predicted they would be. Okay, so that's way up here, positive 17. And as I keep moving, we're still positive forever. Okay, so a sign charts are important to learn. You have to use these in calculus over and over and over again. The other thing is I do them in my head because I don't actually think about the numbers like -3 and -18. I would say negative divided by negative gives me a positive result because that's all I care about. Is it positive or negative? Okay. All right, let's try another one. What's different about letter B?
There's 6.
Okay, what do we need to do with the 6? Move it over. So we have x plus 8 over x plus 3 minus 6 is less than or equal to 0. What do we need to do to combine fractions? Common denominator. X plus 3 on top and bottom. I don't want to multiply the 0. We can't get rid of our fraction. That'll eliminate a bunch of responses. All right, on the numerator, I have x plus 8 minus 6 times the x plus 3. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute that negative 6 and combine like terms. It becomes negative 6x minus 18. What do we get? Negative 5x minus 10 over x plus 3 is less than or equal to 0. All right, cool. We cannot cross multiply. So we cannot cross multiply because if we were to cross multiply, what happens to the x plus 3? I mean, well, okay. What value is excluded from this? Negative 3. Okay. If you know that, technically you're getting rid of it. So we know that x cannot equal negative 3. That's the undefined thing, the undefined value. What's the 0?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. How'd you get x equals negative 2?
You added 10 to both sides and
Good. Add 10, divide by negative 5. Good. So 0 just comes from the numerator. Our undefined thing comes from the denominator. So hopefully that's easy to see. All right? All right. Small little sign chart here. I have negative 3 is undefined. So I cannot, there's no value there. And then negative 2 is the 0. And I'm just filling it in because that's equal to 0. That's equal to 0. And so I'm looking for where this function is.
Less than or equal
Negative
to
5
0.
on
So
both
negative.
sides. We need to switch the sign.
No,
Negative 5 on the other side.
because we are, when we find a 0, we're finding where it equals 0, not where it's less than 0. Okay, we're solving an equation rather than the inequality. That's a good question. We want to know where it's less than or equal to 0, which really means negative, negative, negative. Okay, so we're interested in the negative spaces. Give me a number to the left of negative 3. Negative 10?
yes.
All right, negative 10. If you plug in a negative 10, what does your numerator become? Positive, like 40 something?
Yes.
Okay. Over, if you plug in a negative 10 in the denominator, what do you get? A negative 7. Positive divided by negative is a negative result. I don't really care what the number is. The number isn't important. I'm only interested in where it's negative, right? What's a number between negative 3 and negative 2? Negative 2.5, yeah, not 0. If you want to plug it in your calculator, you're more than welcome to. Especially for crazy, numbers that aren't so nice. Negative 5 times negative 2.5 minus 10 gives me a positive result. Negative 2.5 plus 3 also gives me a positive result. Positive divided by positive gives me positive. Oh, yeah, I should probably have written it below. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Now, what's a number to the right of negative 2? 0. Yeah, plugging in a 0. Do we get a positive or negative result?
Negative.
Negative. All right. So what is our solution interval here? Negative infinity to, yeah, negative infinity to negative 3.
Right.
Is it a bracket or is it a parenthesis?
It's a bracket.
So this is an interesting question, right? We want to know where it's equal to 0 as well. So you'd think bracket, but can we equal -3?
Oh.
No, we cannot. So it's just going to have to be a parenthesis. We're not allowed to equal it, even if we could. All right? But over here, we are also negative. Everything to the right of -2. At -2, bracket or parenthesis? Bracket there, all the way to positive infinity. All right. How do you feel about sign chart?
I absolutely despise it. I could do it if I felt like it.
That's fun.
You say about every single one, and
And
then
you
it
look
turns
over
out
and you're like,
Good. All right, so we do need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to move this one over by subtracting it. So I have 1 over x minus 2 minus 1 over x plus 3 is less than 0. What do we need to do on the left-hand side here? Common denominator, all right. So I'm going to multiply the first fraction by x plus 3 on top and bottom. And the second fraction by x minus 2 on top and bottom. Oops, x minus 2. All right, thanks. This is for your, I don't know if you want to go right now or wait. You've been summoned.
Well, if it the way you brought
I don't know. Let's see what happens. All right.
The other way you can still get answers.
I don't recall what happens with this one. So my denominator is common now. I don't have to distribute the 1, so I really just have x plus 3. Oh, what do I have to do with the second one? Distribute the negative. Don't forget to distribute that negative. So that becomes negative x plus 2 is less than 0. And x minus x, that goes away. So I have 5 over x minus 2 times x plus 3. Interesting. All right. So where is this undefined?
-2 and -3.
Good. X cannot equal 2 and x cannot equal -3. Those come from the denominator factors there. What about the zeros? This is kind of weird. There aren't any. Yeah. There's nothing to solve for here. 5 cannot equal 0. There aren't any zeros. In this case, there's no x to solve for in the numerator. So we don't have to worry about that.
No, it does the same thing.
No, this is a real interesting graph, actually. It's real interesting. All right, I'm going to make a little sign chart here. Got -3 is undefined, and also 2 is undefined. I'm going to do some test values. What's the number to the left of -3? -4. I'm going to use -4. -4, if I plug in a -4, I would have 5 over -6 times -1.
So 6, 5 or 6.
5 over 6 is a positive positive result. Very, very good. What can you plug in between -3 and 2? 1, 0, 0 sure seems nice.